it's kind of been a wild time to be a One Piece fan. I seriously can't remember there ever being as many big announcements about projects related to One Piece than we've gotten this year. The Netflix One Piece live action was obviously announced many years ago, but we finally got it this year, and then we also got a confirmation of Season 2. Along with this, we're getting an entirely new One Piece anime adaptation, which takes the cake for the most surprising thing possible. And they added on an adaptation of Monsters just for shits and giggles. But I think that there's other things as well that a lot of fans might take for granted, like a big advertisement push at events like Anime Expo that we have literally never seen before, and an actual float in Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which had a bit of an accident. The takeaway from all this is there has never been more effort to spread that One Piece love globally. They want to capitalize on the momentum of the live action to create more One Piece fans. So with all this being said, I think that there's at least one thing that they aren't currently doing that they should be. It's finally time for a world-renowned One Piece video game. And I think I know how to do it. So guys, here's my pitch. Remember to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Let's begin. Hey YouTube, JoeBoy here. So, it might be worth saying that the last couple One Piece video games have actually been really good. I honestly think that the Musou style gameplay that we see in Pirate Warriors, it fits One Piece perfectly. Those games sold incredibly well. There's a reason that this game got 4 runs. Playing as one of many different One Piece characters, stomping legions upon legions of enemies as if they are ants is incredibly satisfying. It's simple, visually satisfying, and immersive, and leans heavily into the actual One Piece story, which is just quite frankly a really great story. So it had a lot of things going for it. I don't think that Burning Blood was quite as popular, but you know, I don't really fault them for it because I felt like they made a lot of good decisions. One Piece as a fighting game makes a ton of sense. Large cast of characters with a large range of abilities, visually very pleasing. And while the common criticism I saw was the game was a little bit more visually oriented than the structure of the gameplay itself, it plays into One Piece itself's strengths in a way that I think makes it unique. So I don't want to make it seem like I hate or this is disparaging to every other One Piece video game that exists, if that makes sense. But there's a big difference between a game that made it to the shelves and a game that everybody talks about. And I can't possibly imagine a better segue into the sponsor of today's video, a game that has managed to survive and prosper for years because people can't stop talking about it. That game is Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is of course a free-to-play hero collector MMORPG available both on mobile and PC. Raid is the kind of game which ages like Dr. Correa. The older it gets, the better it looks. And that's because there's always something to talk about every single month. There's updates, improvements, the game is constantly evolving. I've said this once, I'll say this again, one of my favorite aspects of the game is the sheer number of collectible heroes, with some of the most incredible designs you'll ever see. And so the evolution this month is the absolutely incredible limited time crossover between Raid Shadow Legends and Monster Hunter. From January 9th to March 5th, players will be able to collect 5 Monster Hunter themed legendary champions. The 5 champions are based on iconic Monster Hunter monsters: Rathalos, Zenogre, Ruiner Nergigante, Elatrion, and Fatalis. And everybody will be able to get Rathalos Blademaster Legendary Champion for free simply by logging into Raid for 7 days between now and March 5th. But if you want to collect the other 4, you can via special in-game events. And aside from that, there will be several community events and activities to celebrate the crossover. But like I said guys, there's always new things happening. The Cursed City is the biggest update to come to Raid since Doom Tower. There are hundreds of stages to play, including stages where you have to face 2 of Raid's bosses at the same time. So if you want in on everything that's going on right now, new players, you can click the link in my description or scan the QR code right here to download the game now with bonus in-game loot. And once you hit level 15, you'll get the free epic champion Juliana to help you slay some of these bosses. Burn and poison damage on top of each other does some work. So like I said guys, click the link, slay some monsters, have a good time. But flipping this back to One Piece video games. So go take a look at some of the best-selling games of all time. Could you imagine a One Piece game ever being on that list? I think that most One Piece fans will tell you yes. One Piece as an IP has that potential. As a first-person shooter like Call of Duty, probably not, although you never know. But as an open-world adventure into one of the most beautifully crafted universes on the face of the planet, maybe so. And I think that the people who control the One Piece IP know this. This was supposed to be the market for One Piece World Seeker. The idea, of course, is good. Brand new original story and island. Take control of a few select characters and roam the island as you please, utilizing Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Mi powers in order to swing around the island like Spider-Man. But yeah, honestly, I thought that this game was terrible. Outside of the story itself, the actual gameplay couldn't have been any more frustrating. The battle complexity was somehow even less than Pirate Warriors, which is notorious as just a button masher, and yet the visual awesomeness of it was a fraction of Pirate Warriors. But this isn't intended to be a review of World Seeker. I just want to convey here that I think that the actual game design of it failed spectacularly. at least for me and the general public. And the reason I think that it felt this way is just by comparison to other games in the same sort of genre, it was just felt less than. I think adding One Piece to a fighting game created something that was, like, unique. But I find character design and visuals, which is a strength of One Piece itself, is kind of a shining point of most open world RPGs. You can throw in world building as well. Aside from diehard fans, I don't think that One Piece gave World Seeker anything that would put it over the top and mask the serious flaws in design and the cut corners. You guys understand what I'm saying here? You can talk about Witcher, you can talk about Zelda, you can talk about Elden Ring, you can talk about even Spider-Man. There's a lot of great worlds already established. And so whether or not these games pop off is more strongly correlated with the actual quality of the gameplay, which is seriously competitive. Like, I'm playing Baldur's Gate right now, and my god, dude. Every so often, something is created that you just can't believe was created. How is it even possible? But it's in a game like this that you can imagine One Piece as a franchise, as an IP having the most success. So how can you realistically get the best of both worlds? The successful games in this field, I think, hit on certain key appeals. Like, they make you excited to adventure. Encountering new and different types of enemies is a big part of what makes it work. And obviously special and very rewarding boss fights, which motivates you to master the controls. Usually it is a rewarding process to build up your character. New items, equipment, skill trees. All of this typically lending itself to unique gameplay that allows for massive replayability. Open world, there is an uncountable number of paths that you can take within the game, leading to different experiences. But these also happen to be some of the biggest games out there, and so you can expect a lot of different experiences, like for instance minigames, fun minigames, interesting puzzles, unique mechanics, all of which usually act to immerse you into the world and get you excited to explore every nuance of it. But so here's the thing, and this is important to the discussion that we're having. All of these One Piece games are reskins of something else, and typically the only thing that is unique and exceptional about them is the addition of One Piece. The design of One Piece itself is exceptional, from the characters to the powers to the world. That, in addition to existing games, is itself kind of a selling point. But that's all that these games typically intend on doing. And in my opinion, the main reason for this is that they want to make the games as cheaply as possible, so that there is approximately zero thought to the actual design of the gameplay itself. But to be fair, there's a practical reason for this. Making games is a business, and you're just not likely to find the biggest One Piece fan in the world who desires to invest heavily in creating the game for charity. Companies like Bandai, who purchase One Piece's IP, expect to make money. There's an actual intricate business model. Acquiring IPs to use in games is incredibly expensive. And while I don't actually have numbers, I assume the same is true of any One Piece game. If a talented game developer is going to work on a new groundbreaking game, 9 times out of 10, if not more, they're going to utilize their own IP, or acquire one very cheaply, because that way they profit exponentially more. They don't need to pay for somebody else's world, especially when the game itself is good enough that it doesn't need to rest on the laurels of something else. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this rule. For instance, Hogwarts Legacy came out recently. We've mentioned that World Seeker is similar to Spider-Man. Witcher is one of the best games of all time. But even when talking about The Witcher, CD Projekt Red paid pennies for the Witcher IP because it just was not that big at the time that they started developing the games. That actually eventually became drama between the game studio and the original author, because Witcher 3 blew up, and then suddenly he's like, wait, where's my money? But I also think that Witcher 3 emphasizes the power that games can have on promoting an IP. I know that there is a ton of Witcher fans out there, but I would almost guarantee you there is no Witcher Netflix series without Witcher 3 the video game. The Witcher would have forever remained a relatively obscure title without the games. So I think it's almost fair to ask, as a One Piece fan who desires the perfect One Piece game, you gotta treat the game as advertisement and not as profit. Meaning you give a great game studio motivation to utilize your amazing pre-existing IP and bring out the most in it, cheaper than having to do all the background world building themselves. But I'm not naive, I promise you guys, and I understand that this is probably never going to happen. So how do you overcome this limitation? We're living in a world in which the best One Piece game that you could possibly create is an open world RPG that really immerses you in the One Piece experience. And you're competing against some of the best games in existence in a heavily competitive space. I just don't think that we're ever going to see a competent One Piece, Skyrim, or Witcher, or Baldur's Gate. That would be absolutely incredible. It's just unlikely. Imagine the individual work it takes graphically in order to render the powers of the Devil Fruits, and each Devil Fruit's dozens of unique movesets. That's the game that everybody wants, isn't it? Where hypothetically, you create your own character, your own pirate or marine in the world of One Piece. You then set out on your adventure and you recruit your own pirate crew, and along the way, you find a random chest and a random island which possesses a random devil fruit, one of the hundreds that exist within the story of One Piece. You're then able, hypothetically, sell the devil fruit or feed it to your crew members or your captain. You then have this immersive journey where your pirate captain has the potential of wielding the venom devil fruit, which gives you access to a multifaceted skill tree, which would include the devil fruit that you choose to eat, so that you can eventually, by the end of the game, unlock the best of Magellan's powers and see that spectacular visual play out in 60 frames per second open world. But that's only the first playthrough because you have hundreds of devil fruits to choose from. But yeah, straight up, just don't think that this is possible. Not now technologically, and not ever because of the cost. But if you want to create an experience like this, it might be possible if you simplify it. Don't buy into the hype of the realism of 3D graphics. One Piece is a manga. It is still frame artwork. I think that you could do a lot with One Piece as a 2D pixel art experience. Some of this might just straight up be nostalgia for me because I grew up playing Game Boy Advance games with things like Golden Sun, Fire Emblem, the OG Pokemon games. But I've never needed 3D graphics to immerse myself in a world. Quite frankly, playing World Seeker and their attempt to do something like that was at times unsettling. It felt unnatural. You had like cartoonish 3D models in a hyper-realistic setting. It was weird. It didn't quite feel like One Piece. Ironically, making it simpler would make it feel more genuine. And although this is a retro model, there's games recently that have done a great job of implementing this in the current generation. Something I think relatively easy to accomplish which comes to mind is Octopath Traveler. Honestly, I did not like that game. But it wasn't so much the actual gameplay as it was the story, which was rough. But that didn't stop it from having massive sales, which means interest is there. But if you guys don't know, Octopath Traveler did something what they call HD 2D, which was you take kind of the old school 2D pixel games and then you high def the background. And although the game isn't really an open world RPG, if you think about One Piece, the story of One Piece and how a game would capture the adventure, it wouldn't be a true open world either. You'd likely see linear paths traveling down the Grand Line, visiting familiar and hopefully some unfamiliar islands. So in a way, it's really not all that different from something like Pokemon. Mostly a closed loop where the game intends for you to visit the cities and the gym battles in a particular order, throwing in some wrinkles here or there, but making sure you make the game big enough to allow for replay value. Essentially, you just make more than one path. But maybe I haven't made a good case yet because you don't quite see what the appeal of a game like this would be. And to me, that's kind of the beauty of it. With this, I feel like you can reasonably do so much more. It can be a side-scrolling real-time beat-em-up. If you want it to be like your classic Dragon Quest, it can be. It could be turn-based strategy. This is actually something that was recently accomplished in the newest One Piece game, One Piece Odyssey. Another game that sold relatively well and was pretty well received. But despite already having a game like this, what it doesn't capture is it doesn't capture the scope of One Piece. Instead of feeling like a full-ass pirate adventure, it feels like a playable One Piece filler arc. You begin as the Strats with your entire party already unlocked. In my opinion, the only reason you play this game and not Dragon Quest is if you are already a huge One Piece fan. So it feels like the game is close to something amazing. We just need more scope. But turn-based strategy is just one option, with hundreds of different permutations. Basically, however you want the gameplay to go, it can be accomplished. But what I feel like every One Piece game misses is an authentic pirate adventure, where instead of reliving the actual One Piece story, you can kind of create your own. And that gives the game a feeling of more freedom and a feeling of complexity. Take all of the aspects of RPGs that everybody loves. There's already a ton of unique races in the world of One Piece, and we have Half-Bloods. Each race will grant some kind of preset statistics. You can design something like 40 unique characters. Oda does this in his sleep anyway, and then treat it like Fire Emblem. Make these characters show up at different points in the story, or perhaps even show up randomly, but they're recruitable under certain circumstances. However, you're limited by a 10-person crew, and maybe you can only recruit one new character per island. Give these characters base combat classes: brawlers, swordsmen, snipers, witches, augments like Sanji, cyborgs, creatures, botanists, and then give them designated roles on the crew. Like most likely your doctor is going to be your healer, but ideally you can unlock different experiences from each island depending on which crew members you happen to have, like getting an archaeologist early, could help you discover some sort of secret dungeon. And the prize from that is some kind of exciting devil fruit, which then becomes a combat subclass. Instead of a traditional level up system, you could do something really cool with bounties. And you could get really creative with it if you wanted to, like, for instance, if one of your crew members' bounty exceeds that of your captain, then you have a mutiny, or some sort of negative effect. Likewise, if you want to do some kind of marine pirate dichotomy, then you could do pirates versus bounty hunters using the same bounty system. Like, maybe I really am asking for too much, but I'm playing Baldur's Gate right now and I feel like that can be done, minus all the bells and whistles. How cool would it be to have some sort of level cap on your character so that even at the end of the game, each character still has a unique build? Did you choose to invest in your character's skills or their devil fruit or hockey? Maybe you could approach it like, for instance, Borderlands, where you have 3 unique skill trees, but you can only acquire the final skill on 2 of them. So your swordsman lookout with the light devil fruit can only have the final ability of either swordplay, their preferred type of hockey, or their devil fruit. Or to take this a step further, maybe there are several different final abilities on each of these trees, and you gotta choose. Do you want your light-wielding lookout swordsman to be totally all in on damage, or do you want him to have some support effects? If you're a swordsman devil fruit user, in many cases you would have to choose which kind of tax you would prefer, based on the devil fruit or based on your sword. So it'd be good to build in a purpose for the devil fruit even if you don't intend on using it as your main weapon. But of course it goes without saying that I want some strategy elements to the combat. But if you blend this in just the right way, especially with the random element of the devil fruits, you can potentially build your characters and your crews however you want to. And figuring that out, understanding it and min-maxing it could be a very rewarding process. And it's also immersive as you tell your own unique story that isn't already spoiled. But I suppose the story is itself one of the biggest questions that people would have about a game like this. How could it work? If it's possible for you to discover any one of the hundreds of devil fruits that Oda has already created, then the characters that actually possess those devil fruits in the story can't possess them. This is I think one of the biggest problems with taking the One Piece world but not utilizing the striads. You essentially waste all the characters that Oda has already created. And while it'd be amazing to have a story set in a different timeline, like for instance, somewhere in the 800 years since the world government took over, or during the actual Void Century itself, that would be amazing. I don't know if that's feasible. It's taken Oda 25 years to build up this world. No game set up on a different timeline is going to be able to match that. But don't worry, I brainstormed this. I got myself an idea and I'm curious as to what you guys think. The game is either set shortly before Luffy set out on his adventure, or during the 2-year time skip, meaning most of the world is as it has already been drawn and as we know it. Your main character is the grandchild of one of the unrevealed members of MADS, somebody who isn't as noteworthy or notorious as Dr. Vegapunk, but still an incredibly smart scientist. Several years before the game begins, maybe at an island in the East Blue, your grandfather discovered something amazing. A comet from outer space containing technology related to the Void Century struck the island. Let's call it a shard of the Eternal Flame. And while studying this object, your grandfather discovers that this object can be used as a key to reveal and unlock ancient Void Century crypts, hidden and protected by the lost technology of the past. He discovers this because one of these crypts is present on the island that you begin with. And from this, you have something akin to the beginning of Pokemon. Within the crypt, your grandfather found 3 devil fruit, but you will only be able to take in each one of them. Your choice. Maybe these devil fruit are randomly generated, maybe they're pre-selected. But as this is your main character, your captain, you'd like him to have an incredibly powerful devil fruit, so maybe all 3 of these choices give you some mythical zone. But so here's the kicker. This is not a normal devil fruit. You can think of it like a perfected artificial devil fruit, perhaps with an additional plot relevant effect to it that you don't see with normal devil fruit. Maybe it's also not weak to the sea. But your grandfather discovered other artifacts aside from the shard of the Eternal Flame in the wreckage, and something about this makes sense to him. He knows that these things are related to the Void Century, and now knows that the Void Century had technology that far surpassed anything that exists today, even Dr. Vegapunk. As Dr. Vegapunk and Caesar, 2 other members of MADS, are known to have been working on artificial devil fruits, somehow he's come to find what they were hoping to achieve, already created in the past. But the cool thing here is that since these are artificial devil fruits, you can have overlap with the actual One Piece story. Basically, you can have the same powers as somebody else has already in the world of One Piece. But of course, your hero needs a call to action. A rogue member of Cypherpol has discovered your grandfather's research, and they intend to use it for themselves, not informing the government. This Cypherpol agent raids your village, captures your grandfather, thinking that he will soon possess this technology and that the grandfather is needed. Maybe at this point he goes full Gary, finds one of the devil fruits and eats it so that you have your antagonist with a power similar to yours. However, he does not notice you, and your grandfather entrusted you with the shard of the eternal flame. So your character's adventure isn't about becoming the Pirate King or finding the One Piece. In this way, you don't have to spoil Laugh Tale. The adventure is about finding and rescuing your grandfather. This is where your choice to become either a marine, maybe a bounty hunter, or a pirate plays out. Essentially, you decide how you want to represent yourself as you tackle the Grand Line. But at the end of the day, no matter which faction you choose, the story will play out roughly the same, adventuring each successive island and collecting bounty. Again, I think it would be stupid not to use the characters that Oda has already created, the world he's already created, so you fight some of the same battles Luffy does. It becomes a mirrored adventure to the Strides, with the exception that as you adventure, you will utilize your Shard of the Eternal Flame and discover that these lost crypts are found on every island. Basically, it's just like the search for the poneglyphs, but without any need for spoilers. But an important facet of all of this is that if this occurs anywhere near the present storyline, we gotta kind of write our character's existence out of the One Piece canon. So by the end of the story, your character needs to essentially be erased from history, like Rock's Dieselback. And hell man, if this is a game revolving around mad scientists and ancient, incredible technology, maybe you just yeet it up into space after you save your grandpa. And that's how the story ends. But I don't really want to say any more than this because they could take it however they wanted to. All that's really important is that we've established a scenario for an incredible pirate adventure. If I can do it musing in my basement, it can be done. But obviously there's a million other things that we could talk about here. Ironing out the details, theory crafting, how it would all work. It's probably too much for this video. The main thing I wanted to convey is all of this feels so much more possible if you tone down the graphics. Bandai, who does all of the One Piece games and also does One Piece Treasure Cruise, has already mastered the pixel art units. And that's just a phone game, man. If you hammer out the background art and environment, you already start to have a game. Then it's just about the story and gameplay. But anyway guys, I got all of that off my chest. If it's feasible or not, if you like it or not, let me know in the comment section below. And if you vibe with me, we can dream together. But anyway guys, if you haven't checked out my book, The Booms, you can link in the description. If you guys happen to read it, please leave a review. Let other people know what you thought about it. Like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, join the squad, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.